What if what you've been calling aging for years isn't really aging? Think about it for a second. Every morning, somewhere in the world, a cat wakes up, and before it puts its 4 paws on the ground, it does something. Something you stopped doing decades ago. Something your body has known since before you were born. Since before the first cell in your lineage learned to move. You don't need a gym. You don't need pills. You don't need any weird devices. Just 5 seconds. And in those 5 seconds, something happens that no modern doctor is going to prescribe to you. Not because it doesn't work, but because it can't be put in a box or sold in a pharmacy. That thing the cat knows, and you forgot, is exactly what we're going to recover today. Because there's a lie they've repeated to you so many times that you've already accepted it without questioning it. That stiffness is the price of getting older. That creaking when you get up is normal. That feeling rusty in the morning is just the way it is. And the funny thing is that lie wasn't meant maliciously. It came disguised as common sense, as logical medicine, as that's just the way it is. But there's a huge difference between what's inevitable and what's poorly explained. Your morning stiffness isn't aging. It's not deterioration. It's not your body giving up. It's a message, a very specific one, which you've been ignoring for years because no one taught you how to read it. That pain when you take your first steps, that crack when you turn your neck, that gritty feeling in your knees when you squat down. It's not wear and tear, it's a river that stopped flowing. Your internal flow system spent hours without receiving the signal it needs to move. And now it's telling you, and your body with an almost sacred patience repeats that signal every morning, hoping that someday you'll understand it. And no, you're not the only one who was never told about it. In fact, cultures separated by thousands of kilometers and thousands of years came to exactly the same conclusion, by completely different paths. In ancient China, Taoist doctors didn't talk about stiffness. They spoke of a dry river of depleted oil, of dormant energy. And it wasn't poetry, it was diagnosis. It was their way of describing exactly what you feel every morning before your body gets going. And they had solutions. No pills, no machines, nothing modern. Curious, isn't it? On the other side of the world, in India, the yoga masters described the same thing with different words. Another culture, another language, same truth. Inside you, there is a flow of life energy, and when it gets blocked, the body stiffens before its time. This video is not going to teach you something new. It's going to remind your body of something it never forgot, but that got buried. Because of the noise, because of the sedentary lifestyle, because of that modern habit of waking up and grabbing your phone before even taking a deep breath. Yes, that little ritual that seems harmless, but really isn't. The river is still there. It never left. It just needs the right signal to start flowing again. And the most interesting thing is that the signal has always been in your hands. But before we go any deeper, there's something you need to understand, because if you don't get this, all of this sounds nice, but it doesn't change anything. And to understand why that river dries up, you need to know how your tendons are really nourished. And here's something that almost nobody explains to you properly. Your tendons don't have their own blood supply, not directly. Unlike muscles, which are full of blood vessels, tendons have very little blood supply. So how do they get nourished? With movement. When you move, fluids from the surrounding tissues are pushed in by diffusion. When you don't move, that process stops. The water is there, literally just centimeters away, but it doesn't get in. The river is close, but it doesn't flow. Now imagine this. 8 hours sleeping, 8 hours almost without moving. 8 hours where your tendons, ligaments, and all that tissue that holds your body together go without their only real source of nourishment. It's not that something failed during the night, it's that the pumping stopped. And when the pumping stops, the river stagnates. That's exactly what you feel when you get up. And here comes the part that a lot of people have a hard time accepting, because it totally goes against what we think makes sense. Rest dries you out. It doesn't hydrate. Yes, rest is necessary for the brain, for the nervous system, to repair the muscle, but for the connective tissue, for the fascia, for the tendons, prolonged rest without movement is not recovery, it's deprivation, exactly the opposite of what they need. And that's where the big illusion comes in, hydration. You've probably been told 1,000 times, drink more water, and maybe you do. You carry your bottle, you drink throughout the day, you do everything you're supposed to do. But let's be honest, did that solve the stiffness? Did it really change how you feel when you get up? For most people, no. And that's no coincidence. It's because the water you drink doesn't go directly to your tendons. To get there, it needs something else. A transport mechanism, an internal pump, compression, and release. That movement that pushes the fluid inward, all the way to the deep layers. Without that pumping, the water stays on the surface. It circulates, and it
va, sin haber llegado nunca a donde realmente hacía falta.
And that's exactly what happens when your life is in motion. Just enough. And stress keeps your body in a constant state of tension, as if it never fully lets go. Look at it this way. Imagine a kitchen sponge that's been out in the sun for days. It's hard, dry, stuck.
Ahora échale agua por encima.
What happens? The water slides off, it doesn't get in. But if you do something else, everything changes. You submerge it, you squeeze it hard. You get the old air out, and then you let it go all at once. That's when the magic happens. That little vacuum that's created sucks the water in. That's real hydration. And exactly that is what your tissue with the
necesita y no está recibiendo.
Because you spend hours sitting, hours without moving, hours where your body doesn't pump anything. Your body doesn't work like a pipe, it works like a sponge, and a dry sponge doesn't get hydrated just by putting water on the surface.
Necesita presión y liberación.
Compression and release.
Ese es el principio.
It makes the tissue really soak it up. Now, there's one more piece in this puzzle that almost nobody takes into account, and it changes everything. The fascia, that tissue that wraps around every muscle, every organ, every bone, like a continuous network that connects everything. For years, anatomy completely ignored it. It was what students removed to see what was important, which is ironic. The important thing was actually what they were taking away. In 2005, a French surgeon, Jean-Claude Gimbertot, decided to do something that no one had done before. He inserted a high-definition camera inside the fascia, but in a living body, not in a cadaver. Not on a laboratory table, but in real tissue, in motion. And what he found had nothing to do with the textbooks. He didn't see static tissue. He saw a living system, a fluid network that moved, vibrated, and responded to every gesture with brutal precision. It wasn't a structure, it was a river. Those images completely changed the way the body is understood. Because if the fascia is a flow system, blocking that flow isn't just stiffness, it's something much deeper. And here's where another key name comes in, Thomas Myers. This researcher showed that the fascia doesn't work in isolated parts. It forms continuous lines of tension that run throughout the body, from the sole of the foot to the base of the skull, without interruption. Simply put, stiffness is never local, never. Tension in the foot can end up in the neck. Discomfort in the hip can show up in the back because everything is connected. A river blocked at one point affects everything downstream. That's why that pain in your neck didn't start there. That discomfort in your knee didn't start there either. And a why,
desde hace años.
Key, this fascia is not a game. Fascia is not passive. It's not just their wrapping things, it has between 6 and 8 times more sensory receptors than muscle. Yes, more. It's probably the largest sensory organ in the body, a living tissue that records everything. Physical tension, stress, emotions you didn't process, stories your body kept because it had nowhere else to put them. But we'll get into that later. For now, keep one thing clear in your mind. The problem isn't that there's a lack of water. The problem is that there's no movement to bring it in. The river doesn't dry up because there's no water in the tap. It dries up because no one is activating the pumping process. And that process isn't random. It has a specific mechanism, a particular fluid, and a history much older than any modern laboratory wants to admit. Because when something is true, it doesn't need to be invented twice. It appears on its own in different cultures at different times, in languages that never crossed paths, with different names. But pointing out,
Exactamente lo mismo.
that's what happened with the fluid that nourishes your tendons. In 2nd century BC China, a group of Taoist doctors began to gather what would later become the foundation of all their medicine. That text ended up being called Huangdi Neijing, the inner canon of the Yellow Emperor. And there, among theories about meridians, elements, and the movement of qi, they wrote something that has been waiting for more than 2,000 years for someone to truly understand it. Or they said that the tendons depend on the flow of fluids associated with the liver, and when that flow decreases, the tendons lose elasticity, become stiff, and turn fragile. They gave a name to that fluid system, yin and yang, 2 different types within the same mechanism. The lighter ones, the yin, move quickly and nourish the surfaces, the joints, the spaces between tissues. The denser ones, the yi, go deeper. They nourish organs, marrow, internal structures. And what happens when those fluids start to become scarce? The first thing that appears is something you already know all too well. Stiffness, cracking sounds, tension in the tendons, that uncomfortable feeling that something isn't lubricating like it used to. He asserts someone was already describing exactly what happens to you, and they did it without pills, without supplements, and without any of the things we consider essential today. Now let's travel thousands of kilometers to India, another culture, another language, 0 direct contact for centuries, and still the same idea. In the traditions of yoga and pranayama, the body is described as a system of vibrant, vital energy currents called prana. Within those currents, there is one in particular, Vijnana Vayu. Its function is clear: to distribute from the center outward, to bring flow to the joints, to the limbs, to every corner where the body needs life. What do they say happens if that current is blocked? Exactly the same thing. The body stiffens, loses coordination, movement becomes clumsy, uncomfortable, even painful. 2 civilizations, no contact, the same map. That's not a coincidence. Or is that what happens when you observe the body without filters? The body responds the same no matter where you are, because the body doesn't change depending on the culture that studies it. It has always had that internal river. It has always needed that oil. The only thing that changes is who pays attention to it. And this is where modern science comes in, as usually happens quite late. A researcher named Gerald Pollack from the University of Washington decided to study something that seemed basic, but no one had seriously questioned before. How does water behave inside the body? And what he found completely breaks with what we believe. The water inside a healthy organism is not simply liquid water. It organizes itself in another way. In 2013, he documented what he called the 4th phase of water, a gel-like structured state with an electric charge and almost perfect lubricant, without friction, without resistance, just what you need between the layers of the fascia to move with real Fluidity. Not that limited version you've already gotten used to. And here's where it gets interesting. The Taoists were already talking about this. They called it primordial water. Primordial, not as a metaphor, but as a different substance. Water that is no longer just water, but organized life. Pollack took decades to put data behind something that other cultures had named thousands of years ago. And no, it wasn't luck, it was another way of observing, more direct, more refined. But there's a key detail that almost no one mentions. That gel, that internal lubricant, doesn't just appear on its own. It needs a stimulated state, exactly the same one we've been talking about. Compression, followed by release, pressure, followed by vacuum. Without that, the water you drink is still just regular water. It goes in, circulates, comes out, and never transforms into what you really need. Without the right movement, there's no change. And now comes into play a molecule that connects all of this with something you can feel almost immediately. Hyaluronic acid. Yes, the one that sounds like an expensive cream commercial, but its real function has nothing to do with aesthetics. It's inside your fascia and acts as a lubricant between layers. It allows the tissues to slide without friction. A single molecule can retain up to 1,000 times its weight in water. When it's well hydrated, everything flows. The layers move like wet silk, smooth, without resistance, without noise. Exactly how your body should feel before you were convinced that something else is normal. When that hydration is lost, everything changes. The layers stop sliding, they start sticking together, adhesions form, and that's when deep stiffness sets in and typical stretching doesn't help. Because the problem isn't in the muscle, it's in the oil, in what's no longer lubricating. Trying to stretch a dry tendon is like pulling on a rubber band that's been out in the sun for days. You're not making it more flexible, you're pushing it to the limit. And without lubrication, without that internal sliding, not only do you not improve, you can actually get worse. So now the picture is clear. That fluid that nourishes your tendons has a name in every tradition that truly observed the body, a more powerful thread. Are you happy with all this? That fluid is still inside you. The river didn't disappear, it just stopped. And for it to flow again, you need to activate something that was always there. You never lost it, it never went away, it's just waiting for the right signal. So the question is inevitable. How do you activate it? Here's the interesting part. The answer has been in front of you your whole life. You just saw it without understanding it. Look at a cat when it wakes up. There's no rush, no distractions, no, let me check my phone for a second. Before anything else, it does that. That movement. But if you look closely, you realize something. It's not a passive stretch. It's not that gentle gesture of just pulling a little and that's it. It's much more intense. The cat contracts its whole body while stretching it. It becomes fully activated. The muscles tense up, the body even trembles slightly, and suddenly it lets it all go. In an instant, it goes from maximum tension to total relaxation. That gesture has a name. It's called pandiculation. And in neuroscience, it's the natural mechanism that all mammals use to reset the nervous system and reactivate that internal pumping after hours without moving. That the cat learned. It didn't go to a class, it didn't watch a tutorial, it's an instinct. One that you also had and simply forgot. When that hydration disappears, the body changes completely. The layers stop sliding, they start sticking together, adhesions are formed. And that's where that deep stiffness that doesn't improve with the usual stretches begins. Because the problem isn't in the muscle, it's in whatever stopped providing lubrication. Pulling on a dry tendon is like pulling on a rubber band that's been left out in the sun. You're not helping it, you're pushing it to the limit. And without that oil between the layers, you don't get better, you get closer to wearing out. Now you have the complete picture. That fluid that keeps your tendons alive is still inside you. The river didn't go away. It just stayed still. And for it to flow again, you need to activate something that was always there. You never lost it. You were just waiting, without knowing it, for the right signal. The question then is simple. How do you wake it up? And the answer has been in front of your eyes your whole life. You just saw it without understanding it. Watch a cat when it wakes up. There's no rush, no distractions, no excuses. Before anything else, it makes that move. But it's not just any stretch. It's not passive. It's not gentle. The cat engages its whole body as it stretches. It contracts its entire body. It trembles slightly, and suddenly it releases, all at once. It goes from maximum tension to total relaxation in a second. That gesture has a name, pandiculation. It's the mechanism all mammals use to reset their system and reactivate their internal pumping after hours of immobility. They didn't learn it, they remember it, and now you can too. This isn't about adding another habit to your list. It's about reconnecting with an intelligence your body never lost. 3 steps, 5 seconds, and an inner response that's been waiting for this for years. First step, intention. Before you move, feel. Bring your attention to the stiffest area, jaw and neck, lower back, behind the knees, shoulders, where you know something isn't flowing. But don't see it as a problem. Observe it like someone touching something for the first time, without judging. Just feel. Stay there for a few seconds. Breathe into that area. No technique, no exaggeration. Just direct your attention and listen. Maybe there's tension, maybe warmth, maybe that dull resistance you've been ignoring for months. That simple gesture, something has already changed. The body responds when you truly look at it. Now, second step, active compression. Here's the key. It's not about how much you stretch, but about how much you contract while you stretch. Raise your arms, open your body as much as is comfortable. And there, at that point, do the opposite of what you would normally do. Squeeze and clench your fists, raise your shoulders, engage your arms, chest, back, as if your whole body became solid for a moment, but without force, with intention. That changes everything. Hold that contraction. 5 seconds. 1, the tissue compresses. 2, the fluid starts to move. 3, the pressure increases. 4, that tremor appears. That's the real signal. 5, you're right at the limit. You're squeezing the sponge, preparing the vacuum. And now, third step, release. But really let go, not slow, not controlled, not pretty. Let go as if the strings were cut, all at once. Let your body drop. Let the air out. No holding back. There, right there. The body drinks. The emptiness fills up. The fluid enters. The system reactivates, and in seconds, something changes. Stay still for a moment. Feel. Maybe a tingling sensation. Maybe warmth. Maybe a sensation of expansion. It's not your imagination. It's flow returning to areas that have been silent for too long. Gently move that part and notice the difference. Less friction, more space, more life. And the best part is, this doesn't require anything external. You can do it when you wake up, before you get out of bed, when the river has been still for a long time, or in the middle of the day, whenever your body asks for it. Because now you already know how to read that signal. There are 3 areas where this feels even more powerful. The base of the skull, behind the knees, the soles of the feet. 3 doors, 1 river, you open 1, and everything starts to move. And when this stops being a one-off thing, and it becomes part of your day, it's not just the stiffness that changes. It alters how you relate to your body. You stop seeing it as something that fails, and you start to feel it as something that supports you, that speaks, that was always waiting for you to ask it the right question. However, if you're here halfway through this video, it's not a coincidence. Something in you held on. Something in you didn't want to leave. Something in you said, "Stay. This is for you." While others closed, changed, got distracted, you stayed. And that, even if you don't see it, already says everything. So write this in the comments.
Nunca fue falta de fuerza.
Yes, subscribe and share. And when you write it, feel it. Because you're not broken. Maybe you'd simply spent years trying to understand the language of your own body. And even so, you kept going. But there's still something more. Something that almost no one considers, because until now we've talked about the body as if everything were mechanical, as if the problem were just a lack of movement. And yes, that's true. But that's only half the story. The fascia doesn't just hold physical tension, it holds everything, experiences, emotions, moments that weren't released. Think about the last time you felt real fear, not just a little scare, but true fear. Your body closed up, shrank, protected itself. That's natural, it's survival. The problem isn't that contraction, the problem is when the signal to let go never comes. When the danger passes, but the body stays in defense mode. That tension stays, it gets stored, it becomes physical memory, and over time it sticks, it accumulates. The river narrows. And what you feel as stiffness sometimes didn't start yesterday. Sometimes it's been there for years. Because when you do this process with real attention, you don't just release tissue, you release something else. And many people feel it, but they don't know how to explain it. An emotion that appears for no clear reason, a strange relief, sometimes even tears. Without a story, without thought, because it doesn't come from the mind, it comes from the body. And no, it's not strange, it's the river finding its way out. The moment of letting go is not just physical, it's permission. A moment, you can open up now, it's over now. And that changes everything. That's why in all these traditions, movement was never alone. It always came with presence, real attention. Because consciousness isn't an extra, it's part of the mechanism. If when you observe without judging, when you contract with intention, when you let go without controlling, you're doing two things at the same time. You're activating the flow, and you're telling your nervous system, it's safe to let go now. And when those two things coincide, something happens that's hard to explain, but very easy to feel. You feel more in your body, more like yourself, as if something that had been tight for years finally had space. And when the river has space, it flows, and everything fits. From that cat that remembers it every morning to your body, which had been waiting too long for you to remember it too.